Good evening and salutations, my YNR fans. You know, as I was sat there watching it for the second time, or watching clips of Young and Restless for a second time, and I know some people in the comment section I was watching it, and they're like, "Oh, this episode is so boring. It's so dull and boring," and I'm kind of just like, it amazes me sometimes where it's like, do y'all realize what y'all are watching at this point? Like, The Young and the Restless is not known for fast paced, very this isn't General Hospital. And that needs to be just known. They are going to go at a slower pace. Now, this episode, if I had to sit there and title this episode, I would sit there and say emotional, right? Take for Victor and Victoria's conversation. Victoria is known for a lot of things. She can be vengeful, spiteful, bratty, but she's like her father in a sense where she could be loving and kind and sweet and vulnerable. And in this scene, you see with her and Victor, she is, well, they're talking about something that could probably be a very daunting and scary conversation. That's more modality, you know? Um, and it's up until a point where it's like, he wants to be real with her. He's like, listen, I got shot or whatever, and I'm not always going to be around, and that's something that you kind of need to sit there and be prepared for. And I got to sit there and tell you that is a very scary conversation. That is probably among the most scariest conversation. Not including like children and stuff like that, but just in general, it's probably among the most scariest conversations. So that definitely is something that I could sit there and relate to in a sense. It hits home for me. So I really felt it in this scene because I know exactly how scary that conversation could actually be. Um, and the thing is with Victor and Victoria, they're always going back and forth. They're always, Victor oversteps. Victoria has a problem with it. Victor thinks he's doing the right thing because he knows better and he's wise and everything like that. Victoria's like, yo, listen, I don't need you doing that. I don't need you doing that with Claire. I don't need you sitting there trying to tell Claire who she can and can't be with. But throughout their arguments, it's one of the things that she was like, listen, us going back and forth, you being pig-headed, me being pig-headed, regardless of all the name calling, is that the love is always still there. She is always going to love her father, no matter what kind of names that they call each other. And I definitely appreciated that part because I think 2 days before, he's not there talking about, oh, well, I don't like Kyle, and Kyle's not good enough for Claire, and Victoria's like, she went through that with Jordan. She doesn't need to sit there and be brung into his family, so she has to deal with the same controlling BS as before. And then you go to the Abbott's house, and Claire is there, and Jack is not there talking about his dad and everything that his dad meant to him and all the stuff that he's taught him. Kyle makes a joke like, "Oh, here we go." Him always sitting there talking about his dad, but Jack is a very sentimental soul. You know, um, he just pretty much talks about his dad and everything that he's taught him, and just the value and just how great his dad was. Now, of course, one of the questions I asked yesterday was like, "Where the hell is Alan?" Remember Alan, right? The guy who's with Tracy, who at one point was saying, "Is that Alan? Is that Martin?" Well, they're in New York, and then at some point they're going to be somewhere else, and Ashley's back in Paris because like whatever. Um, but the comment that I saw was, Diane was not there saying, we ought to spruce up the place. And of course, because, oh my God, we gotta hate Diane. Diane is this, Diane is that. Diane is evil. Ew. Diane has too much power. She has too much power because she wants to sit there and spruce up the place. Diane has an eye for fashion and interior and design and stuff like that. But instead of people just being like, okay, she just, wants to kind of uplift the place a little bit. It gotta be, she has too much power. It's just one of those things where it's like, I mean, some characters are just gonna be hated. Some people still live in this idea of, characters that you love to hate. I'm enjoying YNR particularly because there are some people, some toxic ass fans on General Hospital where I'm just like, yeah, I'm so glad that I do watch all four soap operas because, yeah. Um, One of the comments that I saw as I'm sitting there watching this show is that they are using Connor's OCD to bring um Adam and Chelsea together. And I'm gonna be honest, they've been doing that since they hooked up the first time. And it's kind of a slimy and scumbaggish way to do it. I mean, I get it. Your kids can sit there and bring you back together. But they're using a mental illness to bring these people together. And there's something about it where it's just like, this just feels wrong. Like you can't put it into words, but it just feels wrong. It's like, really? This is what we're doing? And of course, Connor goes to see his granddad, Victor, and everything. And, it's a nice scene. Again, this whole thing just comes across as emotional. So if you are not, if you don't like the emotional stuff, this episode's not entirely for you. Now, while Billy is not there selling Phyllis on the idea, and Phyllis, like Jack, is making sure he's not using this company to sit there and go after Victor. And he says he's not, so they're going to take him at his word. And particularly Phyllis is very excited. And, Daniel's not exactly on board. He's like, oh, I don't know, because, how Billy, he has a bunch of grandiose plans that never comes to fruition. I'm just like, um, what are you doing right now? Like, one of the things he said to him when Summer was there was, listen, I mean, I have time, unfortunately I have time since I'm not working. And I'm kind of just like, see, this is my issue with Daniel, right? I don't know of all Billy's Abbott's ideas and plans and schemes and whatever else. But my whole thing is like, bro, you don't have a job. You don't have a job. Like, no, no, no. You don't have a job. Let's be very clear. You're in a you're in a cafe in the afternoon while Summer is coming back from like, career day, whatever, when she has a job. You don't have a job, bro. I don't understand how you snuck this in. Well, I don't know about Billy because, you're unemployed and you have a daughter to take care of. I don't know anybody in your family that's actually rich. I don't think that Phyllis has the money that she used to have because of Jeremy Stark. So I'm like, what are you doing? When before Heather died, Heather was like, listen, at some point, if we don't get something, we're going to have to sit there and dip into our college savings, for Lucy. So why are you being so pessimistic about this? I'm like, bro, what's your other option? So when Phyllis comes over, Phyllis really does try to do the hard side, even though that Daniel's like, I don't know. I mean, we gotta sit there and talk about it a little bit more. I'm like, how are you paying for this coffee at this point? Like, I know I'm sitting there being jokey about it, but like in reality, it's like, how do you sit there and start acting all snooty and snappy and you don't have a job? Like, you don't have the credibility to sit there and do that because you don't have work. And at one point, Phyllis has to get real with him, and Summer's like, "Oh, don't sit there." No, 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 no. Somebody needs to say that, okay? Because you're living in a delusional world right now, where Phyllis is like, "Hey, listen. One point, you couldn't get a job. Now, how smart you are, you couldn't get a job. You got fired unfairly, in my opinion, with Lily, but you haven't been working since. So why don't you take this opportunity to sit there and at least get your foot in the door, start to get some experience, because you know how it is when you have a resume. You have a job lap in between. It's like, what are you gonna sit there and say you were doing all that time? Sitting on your thumbs and they're just what? Yes, we know that Heather died, and that's terrible, and it's a tragedy. But see, when you have a kid, you can't sit there and just sit on that. You know, at some point, you have to start working through it. It doesn't mean that you're fixed and better, but you have to start putting one foot in front of the other. Don't you think that Heather would want that? So, like, that's how I sit there and I look at that. Yeah, I think that's about it for the most part. Chelsea did again make it perfectly clear because after talking to Nick, yo, listen, I'm only here because of Connor. That is it. That's the only reason why I'm here. And Adam's like, nah, no, I get it, you know. But I mean, like I said, and like other people have said, this comment I do agree with that they are using Connor's OCD to bring them closer together. And if it happens, it happens. If you know, it's not ideal, and it's you can kind of look at it as a little sinister, a little off, but like, hey, kids bring people together. It's not ideal for the whole mental health thing, but it's realistic in a sense, right? Anyway, that's pretty much all I got. Also, huge shout out, happy birthday to Tommy Smith. It is his birthday today, so I hope you're having a great day. And with that being said, I'm gonna go. I'll see you in the next video.